Parenting isn't easy, but when you throw in a child with uncontrollable ice powers and a kingdom to rule, the stakes get even higher. King Agnarr and Queen Iduna were undoubtedly loving parents, but their choices left a lasting impact on Elsa and Anna. From isolating Elsa to withholding key truths about their past, their actions shaped the sisters' struggles in ways they couldn't have foreseen. Did they do what was best, or did they unknowingly fail their daughters? Let's break it down. A love fueled by fear. Parental love often comes with tough decisions, and Agnarr and Iduna made plenty of them. From the moment Elsa's powers became a danger, their first instinct was to protect, not just her, but everyone around her. Their fear wasn't baseless. Magic was unpredictable, and Elsa was just a child who didn't fully understand what she was capable of. The accident with Anna only reinforced their fears, pushing them to take extreme measures. Elsa and Anna were inseparable as children, and their late-night play sessions were filled with laughter and wonder. But one night, things took a turn. When Elsa accidentally struck Anna with her magic, the light-hearted fun became a moment of panic. Anna was unconscious. Her hair turned white from the impact, and Elsa froze in terror. Agnarr and Iduna wasted no time rushing to the trolls for help, desperate to save their younger daughter. Grand Pabbi, the leader of the trolls, healed Anna but left them with a warning. He told them that fear would be Elsa's greatest enemy. Instead of seeing this as a sign to help Elsa embrace her powers with confidence, Agnarr and Iduna took it as confirmation that she needed to be hidden away. They chose to erase Anna's memories of Elsa's magic, shut the palace gates, and kept their daughters apart. Their love for Elsa was never in doubt, but fear dictated their approach. They believed that isolation was the best way to protect her and those around her. They reinforced the idea that she needed to suppress her abilities at all costs. Conceal, don't feel, don't let them know became more than just a lesson. It was a way of life. Even Anna was kept in the dark. Instead of allowing the sisters to grow up together and find ways to manage Elsa's powers, Agnarr and Iduna chose to separate them. Anna wasn't just physically distanced from Elsa, she was emotionally cut off, left to wonder why her sister, once her best friend, had suddenly withdrawn. Elsa's childhood became a life of restraint, where every emotion felt like a threat, and every mistake seemed like a disaster waiting to happen. She was never given the chance to understand her magic, only the pressure to keep it hidden. Fear became her primary teacher, shaping her into someone who saw herself as a danger rather than a person with incredible abilities. Agnarr and Iduna made their choices out of love, believing they were doing what was best for their daughters. But in trying to protect them, they unknowingly created an environment filled with isolation and fear. Instead of guiding Elsa to control her powers, they treated them as something to be hidden. Their intentions were good, but their actions left a lasting impact on their daughters' lives. The consequences of isolation. Keeping Elsa behind closed doors didn't just limit her abilities, it shaped her entire sense of self. The young princess internalized the idea that she was dangerous, that her emotions needed to be locked away, and that isolation was the only way to keep others safe. She grew up believing that any loss of control could lead to disaster, reinforcing a constant state of anxiety. Every moment became a battle to suppress not only her magic but also her emotions, because any outburst could be dangerous. Her days were spent in near-complete solitude, confined to her room with only her fears for company. While other children played and learned to navigate the world, Elsa lived in a space where every interaction felt like a risk. Even moments of joy came with guilt, as happiness and excitement could trigger her powers. There was no trial and error, no safe space to understand the magic she was born with, only an overwhelming pressure to make sure no one ever saw it. Anna, on the other hand, grew up confused and lonely. One day, she had a sister who played with her, laughed with her, and shared every moment. The next, Elsa was gone. Locked away behind doors Anna was no longer allowed to open. No explanation, no gradual shift, just silence. Agnarr and Iduna, in their effort to protect Elsa, never gave Anna the truth. They allowed her to believe that Elsa had simply changed, leaving Anna to piece together the reasons on her own. For years, Anna tried to reach out, knocking on Elsa's door and calling for her. only to be met with silence. The lack of answers left her feeling abandoned, but she never stopped trying. Her energy and optimism remained, but so did the quiet sadness of growing up without the one person she had always been closest to. She wasn't just losing her sister, she was losing the bond that had defined her earliest memories. The sisters, once inseparable, became strangers in the same castle. Agnarr and Iduna wanted to protect both their daughters, but in doing so, they unknowingly created a wedge between them. Their decision to isolate Elsa not only deepened her fears, but also left Anna without the one relationship that had always brought her joy. The separation wasn't just physical, it shaped how they saw themselves and their place in the world. Anna longed for connection, while Elsa feared it. Neither of them knew the full truth, and without that knowledge, they were left to fill in the gaps with their own interpretations. Elsa believed she was a danger, Anna believed she had been shut out for no reason, and both carried those beliefs well into adulthood. What had started as an effort to protect ended up shaping their lives in ways Agnarr and Iduna could never have predicted. The missing guidance. One of the biggest issues with Agnarr and Iduna's approach was the lack of education about Elsa's powers. From the moment they realized how dangerous her magic could be, they focused on containing it rather than understanding it. Every lesson Elsa received was about restriction. Conceal. Don't feel. Don't let them know. There was never any discussion about what her powers truly meant or where they came from. She was left to believe they were dangerous, unnatural, and something to be feared. This approach was even more questionable considering Iduna's Northuldra heritage. The Northuldra people had a deep connection to elemental magic, and Iduna, having grown up among them, likely had knowledge that could have helped Elsa. Whether it was due to fear, guilt, or something else, she never shared this part of herself with her daughter. If she had, Elsa might have understood that her powers were not a curse, but a gift connected to nature itself. Instead, Elsa grew up feeling isolated, not just from others, but from her own identity. Without guidance, Elsa had no framework for how to control or even understand her abilities. Magic wasn't something she could shut off, yet that was the only strategy she was ever taught. She was never encouraged to experiment, never given a safe environment to learn what triggered her powers or how to harness them properly. Every time they manifested, it was framed as a failure, a loss of control, rather than a natural part of who she was. This reinforced a cycle of fear and repression, making her abilities even harder to manage. The lack of communication extended beyond Elsa's magic. Agnarr and Iduna rarely explained their choices, leaving their daughters in the dark about crucial aspects of their lives. This was especially true when they set off on their final journey. Their decision to leave was made with urgency, but they never told Elsa or Anna why. If they had explained that they were seeking answers about Elsa's powers, it could have provided some reassurance. Instead, their sudden departure left their daughters confused and unprepared for what was to come. This absence of guidance shaped Elsa's struggles, but it also affected Anna. Growing up without any understanding of why Elsa was so distant, Anna was left to interpret the situation on her own. She had no idea that her sister's isolation was driven by fear, not by choice. This lack of clarity only deepened the emotional gap between them. Agnarr and Iduna made their choices believing they were protecting their daughters, but their silence left both Elsa and Anna without the tools they needed to understand their own lives. Elsa was forced to navigate her magic alone, and Anna was left to wonder why the sister she loved had shut her out. When their parents left on their fateful journey, they took with them the knowledge that could have changed everything, leaving behind uncertainty that would shape Elsa and Anna's futures in ways they could never have imagined. The unfinished legacy. When Agnarr and Iduna set sail, they likely believed they were doing the right thing. They had spent years trying to contain Elsa's powers, but as she grew older, it became clear that suppression wasn't a long-term solution. If Elsa couldn't control her magic, she would always live in fear of hurting others. Seeking answers may have been their way of finally addressing the problem at its root. Their journey was aimed at reaching Atohallan, the legendary river of memory that was said to hold the truth about the past. If they could uncover the origins of Elsa's powers, they might have found a way to help her understand them. But their mission was never completed. Their ship was lost to a storm, sinking before they ever reached their destination. Whatever knowledge they might have gained was lost with them. With their deaths, Elsa and Anna were left to navigate their lives without parental guidance. Elsa, already burdened with the fear of her powers, had to take on the added responsibility of becoming queen. She had no one to turn to for answers, no one who could reassure her that she wasn't alone in her struggles. The very people who might have helped her finally understand herself were gone, leaving her to figure everything out on her own. Anna faced a different struggle. She had already spent years feeling shut out by Elsa, and now, with their parents gone, the loneliness only deepened. While Elsa dealt with the weight of her powers, Anna was left with grief and uncertainty, trying to hold on to the family she had left. Their parents had kept so many secrets that Anna had no idea what they had been trying to do. The mystery of their deaths lingered, another unanswered question in a life already filled with them. Their deaths left a gap that neither sister knew how to fill. The loss of their parents wasn't just emotional, it left them without the guidance and explanations they had needed for so long. If Agnarr and Iduna had lived, they might have been able to finally provide Elsa with the knowledge she needed to embrace her powers. They might have been able to help Anna understand why their family had been the way it was. But instead, their unfinished journey became part of Elsa and Anna's own path, forcing them to seek out the truth for themselves. Did they fail? Failure is a strong word, but it's fair to say Agnarr and Iduna's choices had unintended consequences. Every decision they made was driven by love. Yet love alone wasn't enough to prevent the struggles their daughters endured. Elsa spent years believing she was dangerous, conditioned to fear her own nature rather than understand it. Anna, left without answers, grew up longing for connection, never knowing why the sister she adored had turned away from her. Their approach to parenting was rooted in fear rather than understanding. They wanted to protect Elsa, but in doing so, they kept her from ever learning how to truly live with her magic. They wanted to shield Anna from pain, but their secrecy only left her with more questions. By choosing isolation over education, restriction over guidance, and silence over honesty, they unknowingly created the very struggles they had hoped to prevent. However, they weren't villains. They were parents doing their best in a complicated situation. Their choices weren't born out of neglect or cruelty, but from the overwhelming responsibility of raising a child with abilities they couldn't comprehend. They had no blueprint, no example to follow, and no way of knowing whether their decisions would help or harm their daughters in the long run. Despite the hardships Agnarr and Iduna's choices created, Elsa and Anna found their way. They broke free from the fears that had been placed on them and built their own paths forward. Elsa embraced her powers, not as something to be hidden, but as an essential part of who she was. Anna, after years of longing for connection, became the bridge that reunited their family. The bond they rebuilt and the lessons they learned proved that imperfect parenting does not define a child's destiny. Agnarr and Iduna made mistakes, but their love was never in question. In the end, Elsa and Anna's story wasn't about the ways their parents failed them. It was about how they overcame those struggles and created a future stronger than the past that shaped them. And that's the story of King Agnarr and Queen Iduna, loving parents who made some questionable choices. But what do you think? Did they fail Elsa and Anna, or were they just doing their best in an impossible situation? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this, there's plenty more where that came from. Check out more videos on the channel, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.